Giggab, episode 527 for Monday, March 30th. Take a walk in the park day 2026. I know. Let's take a walk in the park together. Or you go take a walk. I'm going to sit in the studio and record this. But, you know. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Giggab, the show by, for, and about working musicians. Our sponsor today on Take a Walk in the Park Day is Claude, Claude.ai. You can go to Claude.ai/Giggab and sign up today. Claude, I have used all of the different LLMs and AI engines that are out there, and Claude has kind of slowly but surely become the one I turn to first. It is absolutely my favorite. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton, back here, actually, since I recorded the last Giggab from South by Southwest. And so I figured I'd do a little solo episode, talk through some of the things I saw at South by, but answer a bunch of your questions that have just been kind of piling up. And maybe you introduce a few new topics into the conversation here. I was actually I have two gigs this weekend and was planning on, I had not recorded an episode. I didn't schedule anybody for this week, which was probably a mistake on my part. Like, I'm happy that I'm doing what I'm doing now, but I think I intended to schedule someone for this week and it just didn't happen, right? So I was like, all right, well, I'll come back late from my gig on Saturday. I'm recording this on Friday. And then I'll do I'll record the thing and talk about the gigs. And as I started putting the list together of all the stuff that I wanted to talk about, like sort of generally speaking, I was like, oh, wait, if I wait till I get back from my gig, I'm going to wind up cutting some stuff out. And I thought, well, whatever, it'll be what it is. And then I packed up the car for the gig, the first gig tonight. And I started thinking, I don't know that we've ever talked about the process that we all go through when we're getting ready to record, or to record. See where my brain is? I need to get into gig mode because I got a gig that starts in like 5 hours or something. But that process of where I am right now, like where I just packed up the car and I have... I joke that my system really started when I played a gig in college and did not bring cymbals to the gig, and it was like 2 hours from home. So that was a learning experience that I don't intend to repeat. So what I do is the first thing I do is I just throw all my stuff in the car. I have my drums and our splitter snake and like my, some cable bags that I need and that sort of thing. Generally, I keep them in the garage, basically right next to my car. So loading in and loading out of my car is really easy. There's a couple of things. My studio is actually upstairs. We have a separate building here that has a 2-car garage, my office on the ground floor, and then my studio upstairs. And if I was smarter, I would have put the studio downstairs. And there's still some discussion about doing that. But the studio up here was unfinished when we moved in, or this space was unfinished. So we were able to, do the whole like soundproofing and everything, which is a whole other conversation. Probably worth having, but not right now. So I'm on the wrong camera. Okay. That only matters for the video, but that's fine. I'll fix that now. All right, great. So anyway, there's some stuff that's up here in the studio that I wind up bringing down. But the first thing I do is I just pack the car. And then I go on my phone. And I actually have 2 different lists on my phone. I currently use 2 different list apps. I need to make this more efficient. But the reason I have 2 different lists is I have one master list that, generally speaking, never gets touched, right? It is just the list of all of the things I might want to bring to a gig. So I pack the car, and then I go through that list. And I make sure I'm not distracted by anything. And the one thing that I could get distracted by, mind you, is if I get to an item on the list and it's not yet in the car. And that could be distracting. And this is why I have a second app, because the second app is a checkbox list. And I can go to that one and uncheck the one thing. And it's like, okay, that is the list I'm going to check before I get in the car and I leave. So I go through the list. I say either, yes, I want it and it's in the car. Yes, I want it and it's not in the car, and therefore I put it on the list, on the checklist, or no, I don't want it. And I do this with every single item on the list. For me, it's like, kick, snares, toms, that's kind of how I organize the list. But I also put things, I'm pulling it up to just talk it through. Like I put things on there. Like my list starts shirt, mic stand, vocal mic, my just-in case, my microphone case, my iPad clamp, my iPad, drinks, snacks, gig backpack, which I have still on here as red bag. It used to be a red bag. It's not anymore, but it's, I know what that means. Rug, set list, gig shades. I always like to wear sunglasses on stage because it helps the lights and, all that good stuff. Mosquito fogger, because if I'm playing outside, I want a mosquito fogger. Don't need that today. Sunscreen, right? Then it's mixer, split snake, speakers, cable bags. Then we get into drums, kick, snare, cymbals, pedals, tom, stool, hardware bag, drum mics, in-ears mixer, and then actually my in-ears themselves, right? And the two things that I skipped, I don't know why, are my pitch slap and my pitch slap microphone, because some gigs I play. Now, I don't need everything on that list for every gig. I might not need speakers for a gig like for tonight. I don't, but I look at it and decide. That's how I'm sure when I leave the house and I'm driving out of the neighborhood, sometimes I still stop and make sure I have cymbals in the car. But generally speaking, that's how I can get in the car with confidence, get to the gig, and know that I've got everything I need. So I'm curious, what's your pre-gig routine? What's your process there? Because I bet we can all learn from each other, and I would absolutely love to learn from you. All right, let's go through some questions. The first one actually comes from Skylar, and that's my daughter. She was on the show 27 episodes ago, as it were. And she's getting married later this year, and she reached out to her wedding band and, got the band together. She's not hiring one of my bands. It's a friend of ours, Wheel of Awesome, is playing the wedding, which I'm really excited about. And Monkey Fist is actually playing. So I'm kind of in that band. But, we didn't want me to be in a band at her wedding, which I'm on board with. Right. Great. Even though that's probably the most comfortable thing I could do there. It's not really. That's not really the most important factor of the day. Anyway, when she talked to the wedding venue, they said, we're going to need a certificate of insurance from the band. She didn't know what this meant, so she just passed the request along to John at Wheel of Awesome, John McCormick, who'd also been on the show. And John was like, I don't know what that is. I don't have that. And I've been in bands. I think we've all, if you haven't been in a scenario where you've been asked for a certificate of insurance it's generally the venue where the event is being held wants to be insured, wants you to be insured against anything that could happen that's your fault. And you are then responsible, and they're not responsible for you, and all of those things. Most bands balk at this, because you've never been asked this question, or at least even if you have, you've never solved this problem before. It's really, as you might imagine, fairly simple. I've gone online. I looked this up because I figured, well, what would I do if I was asked this question in today's world? Because I've never dealt with it. I've been in bands that have dealt with it, but it's never been me dealing with it. And I found a couple of them. There's it's really kind of three companies. There's Special Event Insurance. Yep, that's the name of the company. There's Thimble, and then there is Insurance Canopy. And Insurance Canopy is really smart because they have a chart on their website that compares everybody, including Insurance Canopy, which is, of course, highlights that their price is the best. But I searched around; they really are they have compared all of the options. And generally speaking, if you go to the what was the other one? Special Event Insurance. Yeah, that one says things start at about $50 per event, and that is true. You can probably get what you need in that, $50 to $75 range. But you can also get what you need for less than $200 a year. And I'll put links to these companies in the show notes at giggabpodcast.com for you to have. And of course, if you sign up for the mailing list, really, well, we send a couple of things out just to kind of keep you posted on what's going on. But by and large, what we send out are the show notes for the episodes. So you get all of this stuff in the links. But Insurance Canopy is a great place to start, and it might be the place where you end on something like this. So, but I'll put links to that one and then to special event insurance out there as well, just so that you have a couple of things you can look at. But it is not a difficult thing. You can get, you can pay for it online and, and then kind of be done. So you don't have to, it doesn't take a lot of time. You could like, if I had it and I needed it for a gig tonight, I could do it. I will also say though, that I've been in bands that have said, no, we don't have that. And you push back a little bit and the venue just says, don't worry about it. Like, or the event organizers just say, yeah, whatever, it's fine, don't worry about it. So I have succeeded with that too. But if you're doing enough of these kinds of things, paying your, $175, $199 a year just to have coverage for the band, probably not the worst idea. So that is, that's that. Second question comes from Brian from Durham. And he says, is there a best practice for connecting our mixer to a house PA so that we can wire into their system? We usually play smallish venues and use our mixer, a Behringer XAir 18, and a PA system, which is left and right mains and one sub. But occasionally we play larger venues that have their own house system. So far in these situations, we have just connected the main left and right outs from our mixer into two channels of the house mixer. They open up those two channels through their mixer and the PA, but the actual mixing and volume adjustment is done through our mixer, and we use the Mixing Station app on my laptop. Yeah, Mixing Station's a great app. That if you've never used that that app, it's a great one, and it's kind of universal for all wirelessly controllable mixers. So once you kind of get some facility with Mixing Station, you sort of have facility with every mixer that you encounter, and you unlock mixer by mixer. So it's a pretty cool thing. He says, I think the alternative method would be to invest in a splitter snake and send one set of cables to the house mixer and the other set to our mixer, and just use our mixer as a monitoring system, letting front of house or the venue mix their own PA on their own. It says, it seems to me that our current method is fine, but would using the more elaborate and expensive splitter method be worth the cost in terms of sound quality? Thanks for any thoughts. Thanks for that. And he says, yeah, Brian, fellow singing drummer from the other Durham. He's in North Carolina. I'm in New Hampshire. So one letter difference on the state abbreviation. Yeah, I think that your current setup is totally fine, right? And it's something that I do regularly, or someone, from our camp who is familiar with our mixer is mixing, right? If we are at a venue and we are in charge of the sound, but there is no one to mix the sound, let's put it that way. We will either use our own PA entirely with our own speakers, or we will use this method like Brian described, where you take your main left and right outs and you send them into, inputs 1 and 2 on the house mixer, or whatever inputs make sense. Make sure you set your gain so that you're not sending a distorted signal out, and there's, that's super important. And then, letting their kind of system as it's wired go and do it. I've also done it where we've plugged directly into their speakers or whatever. But in general, yes. Right. But in a scenario when they have their own front of house engineer, that's the only time that I would want to use a splitter snake. And that's a lot of the time. Don't get me wrong. But if we're in charge of mixing our own thing, we're generally not going to run two mixers to do it. There is an argument to do that, because it means that whoever's mixing front of house, even if it's also me, we can have two separate EQs, one EQ for the front of house, one EQ for our monitors, right? Gains can be set differently, but that's a lot to manage, and probably not, like, in general, I've never had a problem with it, right? Using our own mixer. So, but when they have their own front of house engineer, the splitter snake, it's worth its weight in gold. And, I bought a 15 by 3 foot ProRec splitter snake, which is one set of the tails is 15 feet. That's what goes to the mains. The other set is 3 feet. That goes to our mixer, which is right next to the splitter snake, and it works great. And I bought it for $120 or something. So like it's worth its weight in gold, but it's not that much gold, right? So I can't believe it took me this long to invest in that. And invest it's $120, right? And then that lets front of house do whatever they want. Every front of house engineer I've ever worked with or even ever spoken with, and this goes from the guy who barely knows what he's doing to like Scoville, right, at the top of the list, and everybody else in between, every single one of them I've talked with absolutely prefers when monitors are on a split because they love not having to worry about you asking them for more in their monitors because they don't have control over that, and B, they like not having to worry. If they want to adjust a gain to make front of house sound better, they can. If they want to, to change the EQ to make front of house sound better, they can. So it gives everybody freedom. So I think there's value in simply having a splitter snake in your world. They're not that much money, but buy one when you have a gig coming up where you're going to use it, and then kind of it's done. You've paid for it and you're good to go. You can get the splitter snakes with isolated channels and crowns and all that stuff, and power isolation, so that you don't have to worry about phantom power coming back and around. The ProRex splitter snake for $120 is not that, but generally speaking, that's not an issue. So I would say start with the inexpensive one, and then as you do more and you want to, when it's time to upgrade, then you go for one that has all those, transformer isolation and all that good stuff. Good? We're on board for this? Okay. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com if you want me and or any of the people that I reach out to for answers to answer the question. Speaking of reaching out, Bill says, greetings from Chicago. I'm trying to enter this century and leave paper set lists behind. So I was wondering if you had a recommendation for a Setlist app. I'd like to find a Setlist app that would also allow me to have a tempo count off as well. Is there an app that you love using? There is an app that I use, Bill, but it's probably not the right app for everyone. And on this one, I really do want to kind of reach out to all of you and hear from you, feedback at giggabpodcast.com, to see what you're using, right? The app that I use for this is Fourscore. Fourscore is an app that's really built for like scores, theater shows, that sort of thing. But you can absolutely put, single page or double page or multi-page, certainly, charts in it, and then build a set list and organize that set list. And it has the ability to put a metronome on each chart that you can, go along with and have it start. And I have mine, generally speaking, it depends on the song and the band that I'm in, but generally speaking, I have the metronome set to go for the first 10 measures of the song. That lets us get settled in. We get, there's no question, are we starting in the right place? And then usually speaking, I have it set to drop out. There's some songs where I just have it go all the way through, but I use Fourscore for that. There are many other apps. I want to see what all of you find. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com. But I will add one thing because of Bill's premise that he wants to start the year without paper set lists. I don't know that I like the idea of being on stage without a paper set list. I absolutely have a paper set list to the left of my hi-hat foot, which is my left foot for me, every single gig. If something goes wrong with the iPad, that's bad. If I have programmed my iPad in the wrong order, that's bad. Having a set list that everybody on stage has the same one, and it's paper and it's printed and everybody has the same thing, and it's paper and it's printed, and if the electronics fail, you still got a piece of paper. Like, I can't stress this enough. I don't think I would want to go on stage without a paper set list. But having the electronics to do their job in addition to the paper set list is wonderful. Dan has, and I think these are two different Dans, but Dan has a question that kind of feeds right into this, which is, what click track do you use live? And I just answered, my thing. He says, I'm a singer-songwriter in Oregon, and I've been practicing starting my songs at the correct tempo, but still struggle live to get them at the right tempo. My band doesn't play with a click. I want to get my drummer to start by clicking off the songs at the right tempo. And what metronome would you recommend getting for him? He says, I use Polynome on my phone, so I'll put a link to that so I can save a set list, but he's on Android, and maybe live it would be better to use a physical metronome with buttons. If you're on in-ears using a metronome on your iPad or something that can feed your ears and only your ears is great. Fourscore does also do a visual click, and I have used that on gigs where I am not on in-ears or can't wire in for whatever reason to have that mixed in with everything else in my ears, and it works. But I'll tell you, maybe it's my brain, but I've talked to other people that have had this same comment. Seeing a click visually does not, like when I hear a click, like I can count in that. So I know where I am, right? Because it's sound to sound. Like my brain is in the same mode. When I see something flashing, it takes me a minute. I have to internalize it and then count. I can't just use the visual as a count. It doesn't work for me as well. So, but it's there. Like it is helpful on those gigs where I can't wire in, but I also don't know the song well enough to trust that I'm going to start it in the right spot. So, the visual metronome can be a nice thing too. But yeah, I'm curious what apps you folks use for clicks live, and how are you doing it? What devices are you doing it with? I know we've kind of had parts of this conversation before, but I like to keep it going. And then other listener Dan, I believe it's two separate Dans, said in-ear monitors. I want to get your thoughts on in-ear monitors that have an ambient filter that allows some noise in. He says, I like the idea of it because it would allow me to hear the drums and the amps a bit without having to mix them into my in-ear mix. Is this advisable or not? He says, I've noticed that once my vocal mic is up in the mix, I can hear the band from that a little bit anyway. Does anyone make them? Yeah, I used to. When I started out on in-ears, I was a big proponent of ambient filters in in-ear monitors. And I think at the time it was probably necessary, being a club gigging, working musician, weekend warrior drummer. Things weren't like they are now. You weren't miking everything necessarily. A lot of times it was, vocals and kick drum, right? And there wasn't really facility to mic everything. There's a lot of times where vocals and kick drum might be all that goes in the PA, but it's still like bass amps usually have a DI out, right? And guitar amps, it's easy to throw a microphone on. You've got your own mixer on stage. You're doing your own thing. And so now it's easy to get everything you need mic'd and in. When I started using in-ears, I was lucky I would get vocals and kick drum, right? It was a lot of the time was what I had. And so having that ambient filter was good and necessary back then. But I still have my ears. It was the UE11 Pro ambience from Ultimate, and Ultimate's building me another set of something right now. And they were like, do you want the ambient option? I'm like, no, I haven't used the ambient option on anything in years. So I don't recommend it. It messes with the way the sound works. You don't get as much a low end out of it because you kind of can't. With that ambient filter. I mean, they can do fairly well, but it's different. And then you're losing the isolation. So you wind up with things louder. It's not that great for you. So in my opinion, is in today's world, there are other ways to solve for that, and you don't need to do it. So that's my thought on that. All right. Where are we here? Well, we got a lot of things to talk about. I want to talk about our sponsor, Claude, which is has become my AI agent of choice. Claude, I do so many different things with AI. Like after we finish the show here, I'll use AI to generate a transcript of the show, which we put into the feed, so you get like closed captions. And then I'll take that transcript or take the list of show notes, and I'll feed that into Claude, And I can actually feed both in. You can use Claude Cowork to do this and let it kind of dig into everything. And then I have that help me write the episode description and all of like the SEO stuff that you need to put into WordPress and all those things. Claude Cowork absolutely takes care of all that. You just point it at a folder and you can connect it to other things. You could connect Claude to like your Google Workspace, right? And have it there are other connectors in Claude if you don't use Google. You can connect it to your email, and in theory, you could like have Claude like doing your marketing to booking agents and club owners or club bookers so that you're staying consistent with them, right? It's got learning mode. It does so many things. In Cowork, you can spin up multiple Claudes that run in parallel, right? So you can split up complex tasks into little sub agents that coordinate with each other and, pass data back and forth. So you can get a long running task going. Like I could, and there are times when I do this where I set up a task before I start to record the podcast. And then when I finish, it's finished for me. It's really, it's like just absolutely amazing, right? Because Cowork can bring Claude's agentic power to your desktop. You don't need a terminal, right? Anybody can use and do real work with Claude. It's such a cool thing. And I've really come to love it and rely on it and use it. It's a fantastic assistant. So if you're ready to tackle bigger problems, get started with Claude today at Claude.ai/giggab. Make sure you use that link, Claude.ai/giggab, and check out Claude Pro, which includes access to all the features that I mentioned here in today's episode and more. Claude Code is in that, which is also something that I use a ton I have the Mac Geek Gab app for my Mac Geek Gab podcast, which we're writing and editing entirely in Claude Code. So Claude.ai/giggab, check it out. And my thanks to Claude and Anthropic for sponsoring this episode. All right. I've realized that I'm a band guy. Paul and I used to talk about this a lot. And I like playing with the same musicians over and over again. Don't get me wrong. I love the challenge of going into a sub gig and, having to be the one that like just learns and goes. But I really like the bond that you get and and there's a comfort level, right? Playing with the same people and like there's learning opportunities everywhere. But my preference really is to be a band guy. And what I like, we do these underground shows that I've talked about here, where we'll pick an artist or a genre. Like this year, the next one up is Boston Cream Night. And then after that, we're doing one called Overboard, which is a yacht rock night. And we're doing we've got one that's like Woodstock themed later in the year and things like that. Right. So, and it's generally the same group of musicians that is on these gigs. And I'm really excited about that for this upcoming year because it's cool to just play, even though we're playing different music at each of these, you really get to learn each other and trust each other. And there's just those things that transfer from gig to gig. You just, that musical conversation. I've actually been missing it because we didn't really have any. One of the underground gigs that they did this month was not really the underground band. It was, they brought in my friend Stu Diaz, who we had on the show. He did a Bruce Springsteen night, and they brought his band in, which includes some people that are like in the underground band. But in general, it was just, whatever band Stu had done for his Springsteen night last year, they reprised that ish as part of the underground thing. So because of that, we haven't had like a real underground gig since January, which I'm kind of missing. I've been trying to get everybody together for a rehearsal because I think the yacht rock stuff is going to be tough. And I know it's going to be tough. I think the more reps we get at it, the more fun we're going to have playing it at the gig, as opposed to just trying to like get through it. Because I think that music needs to be smooth, but we haven't been able to make a rehearsal happen, which is kind of frustrating because I like that band vibe. I just like I like to get together and just enjoy the experience of being in a band. And I think we all have that too. I think a lot of us have that. I don't want to, put words and thoughts in anybody's heads, but what do you like? what's your preference? I know some folks like to just bounce from gig to gig, and I mean I've done that too. It's awesome. There are benefits to both, but when given, if I had to choose to only do one thing going forward, it would be band. I like being in a band. I was just thinking about that today because it's like, we still haven't rehearsed, and it's like kind of a bummer. But anyway, I was at South by Southwest since we last talked here, since we last spoke, and Lisa came with me this year. It all went well. It was a different pacing of South by because there was only one weekend as opposed to two. We talked about that on that episode, but it really was different it was somewhat frenetic. It's always somewhat frenetic, but trying to balance seeing music while there was also tech sessions happening and just a lot of things like just pulling in different directions. But we made it through, and let's see, I'm going to count it up. We saw 38 showcases this year. I saw 38. I think Lisa saw a couple less than me because we did wind up splitting up at times and doing different things. But I saw 38 showcases this year. Last year I saw 39. So I'm one off from last year. But that was okay. And I'm not going to go through every band that I saw, but I'm going to go through the lessons that I that I sort of took notes on. I early in the week, I saw a band at like noon at this rock club. I mean, there was no windows in the door, so it doesn't matter, or windows anywhere really. So it's a black box club. So even though it was noon, sunny outside, it was rock show inside, and it was like 170 dB. This was at Valhalla, which is always one of the loudest clubs. Super clear sound, and I'm sure that's why it's 170 dB. But it's loud. But it's okay. I wear earplugs. I usually wear my AirPods as earplugs. But I saw this band called the Family Battenberg and loved them. They were like, it's kind of like if the Stones became a power punk band, right? It's so there's these like kind of sexy grooves and frenetic energy, guitar driven, really fun harmonies. I did not understand. They were from the UK, I believe. And a Battenberg is like a cake or something. I did not know that when I initially saw the band and thought, oh, maybe they are the 4 members of the family named Battenberg. Like, what do I know? There's the guitar player, lead singer, and who sometimes played guitar, and drummer, all very much looked alike. And the bass player, it could have been argued was their sister or something. Like they, they looked alike enough that I could believe, but they are not. None of them are related. But they were really fantastic. But it was interesting, right? So I saw them, and I wound up seeing them alone because I had gone to like a session somewhere, and I was walking back, and I'm like, I got to see some music, And so I was like, all right, what's happening right there? And I was like, right, great, I'm going in. So I did. Lisa was not with me, and I really liked them, and I wanted Lisa to see this band. And so we found them later in the week playing somewhere else. And it was like outside. It was at the British Music Embassy, which is like essentially the name of a name that is applied to a venue for the week, where they bring in all UK bands that are just programmed throughout the week. And it was it's at a different place every year, at least now it is. And so it was there, and it was outside, and I'm like, okay, great. And we get there, and we get some food, because they always have good barbecue at the British Music Embassy. And then we're waiting for the band to start, and the band started. And it was the one showcase at South by that sounded absolutely terrible. Like, it was unlistenable. Earplugs, no earplugs, didn't matter. The low end was way, way overstated. And it was like, all right, well, like, there's other things to do. We're going to go. I think we stayed for a song and a half, and it was like, this is not pleasant at all. And it really changed. Like Lisa has a negative perception of this band, and rightly so. They sounded terrible. And I loved them at Valhalla at 107, but clear and well mixed. And there was just a lesson there. Like, you gotta make sure that you sound good, and that your front of house engineer. I don't know what was going on there. Like, it's just so atypical to have a bad mix at a South by show. It might be loud. I think I want to see. Andy wrote in and suggested I get somebody from like the audio team at South by to talk about how they approach that, because it's clear that there's an approach. And my perception over the years is that you have free reign on decibel range. Make it clear. So even if somebody on stage, if the drummer's too loud, just push everybody above them. It's going to be 40 minutes or less. Like, just rock it out, you know. But I'd be interested to see that. But yeah, there was the one time that was not good. I saw another band at Stubbs. It was kind of it's one of these things. I call them throwaway moments, but they're rarely throwaway moments. Is the beautiful part, because we had gone to see one band. Let's say that one band played at 6:30 or something, and then the next band that we were going to see at 6:30 to 7, like short set. And then the next band we were going to see didn't play till maybe 8:15 somewhere else. So I was like, well, we can go to somewhere else and see whatever band is before the one we want to see, or we can stay here and see whatever band is after the band we wanted to see. And so we opted for Plan B. And we got to see a band called Thelma and James. Man, they're a couple, married couple from Nashville. They met because they were both songwriters, and then they got married and stopped writing songs together. They individually kept writing songs and pushing their careers and all that stuff. And about a year ago, and they did this for like 10 years. They've been married for a while. About a year ago, they decided to write a song together. And I mean, to call this lightning in a bottle is understating the magic that they have. This was their 8th gig. They played at Stubbs, which is a large venue at South by. It's probably the largest venue, about 2,500 people. But this was, like I said, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, early in an evening. There were maybe 100 of us there, maybe. My guess is that is the last time that they will play to a crowd of only 100 people, unless they do some special, secret thing in a club that only holds 100 people. And then there will be another 1,000 people lined up outside. They were so good. The songs are any artist would kill to have the songs, to have their songs, right? To have them just be their songwriters. But they sing their own songs. And they actually did a cover, which is fun, of a song from Grease. But yes, the musical, You're the One That I Want, which was really fun. They interact well on stage. Individually, each of them could carry a show, and certainly has. But together, lightning in a bottle, and the bottle is broken wide open. I believe their 9th gig either is or will be in front of 70,000 people. I think they're on tour with Luke Combs this summer, if I have that right. So yeah, they're on their way up. Yeah. So Thelma and James, go check them out if you can. Let's see. A band called Timmy Skelly is worth mentioning. The way I would describe that band is guitar-oriented rock band, let's call it that. But if you, and they clearly are, willing to embrace all that is the same about power pop, about country music, and about 90s rock, and you took all the things that are the same about all of those genres, and candidly, they are mostly the same freaking thing. 90s rock, country, power pop. You've got harmonies, you've got little hooks, you've got stops in the songs, right? All those things are similar to both of those, to all three of those, rather. And this band embraced all three. So if you were to embrace all three and you just wear it on your sleeve, like you don't care if you're going to be judged for not being a power pop band, or for not being a country band, or for not being a 90s rock style band, if you're just all three of those things simultaneously, that is Timmy Skelly. And they were excellent. Really, really stole the house. It was good. Let's see. At South by, I'm definitely skipping things. We'll get to more of it, but there's one that's really important. At South by, you get this fun opportunity to be fan for a day for some artists. This year for us, those three artists were Los Lobos, Jack Johnson, and Lainey Wilson. Now that's not, and actually the fourth one was Charlie Crockett. I forgot. That's not to say that I wasn't a fan of some of these bands coming in. But when I say that you get to be fan for a day, what I mean is all four of those artists, all bands, artists/bands, released documentaries about themselves at South by, and then also played showcases. And it's really fun being able to go see a documentary about a band and then go see them play, because you have so much more context. Like I said, it's like you're a fan for a day. You know so much about this band because they've compressed it into a 98-minute documentary or whatever, and then you go see them, and it's a completely different experience than if you'd just gone and seen them. And Jack Johnson was absolutely that way. Los Lobos, obviously that way. Charlie Crockett, fascinating. Lainey Wilson was the disappointing one. I'm just going to get that out of the way here. She hasn't had enough happen in her life to make for an interesting movie, but that's okay. Her showcase is the thing I want to talk about here, and we were really excited to go see Lainey Wilson. We made sure to get there early to Stubbs and get a good spot where we could both see. Lisa's a foot shorter than me, so it was kind of managing that, and it was all fine. It was great. Ate a great barbecue sandwich while we were waiting, brisket sandwich while we were waiting. Lainey Wilson took the stage, played for, I don't know, about 90 minutes. And she was fine, fun. Her banter, was a little, it fell short. It was, I think the note that I made while watching her, well, actually, I think I made the note after we went and saw her. We got on some scooters and rode about a mile away to another South by venue and saw John Popper from Blues Traveler. He had it was his band. There was keys, guitar, no guitar, keys, bass, drums, and of course, John singing and playing harmonica. His voice is amazing. His harmonica playing is absolutely spectacular. The band grooved really well. Him with them, he was absolutely a member of the band kind of thing, But seeing him and his banter between songs, it was like, okay, there is a masterclass and there is a huge contrast here. And the note that I made was record your live shows and don't just do it for the music, right? Do it for the whole show, including your banter, right? And there was no comparison between these two artists. And it was like, okay, John Popper has perfected his banter. Lainey's still working on her banter. I have no doubt that she's going to keep working on it. She is a hard worker. Absolutely. She is relentless. There is a reason that she is where she is. She absolutely deserves to be where she is. I don't want to misstate that. But record yourself live. It's going to be cringeworthy watching it back because it's you, right? But you're going to learn things, and it's going to be better. You'll thank me, and you'll thank yourself for doing this. Similarly, I had an experience that same night. There was one song, actually more than one song, where Lainey Wilson and her band were off of the click. Most of it's, this is modern country. Everything's to a click. Everything's like there's tracks and all those things. But even if there's not tracks, everything is locked into a click. That's fine. And there was, a couple of songs where they kind of broke it down a little bit. And it was pretty clear to me that, there wasn't a click. They were counting things and they were talking to each other. It was obvious. And it was like an instant feel change. It was like, okay, this band plays better without a click. They played really well without a click. It wasn't that they played bad with the click, but the contrast of it was no comparison. It was like, okay, in my opinion, this band should not be playing with a click. They don't sound good with a click. Now, they don't have a choice probably because they have, tracks and all that stuff. So they just need to perfect this. They need to figure out how to get loose with a click. And I wouldn't say it was any one band member to blame. But it was just that band. And it wasn't that they were moving the tempo around. Their tempo was rock solid, but I liked that band a lot better without a click, and having the freedom. And they did let the tempo breathe a little bit. I mean, it wasn't wildly swinging in a bad way. It was swinging in a good way, and it had that swing. And then we went after John Popper. We went to see a band called Soul Tone, and they too were playing their show entirely to a click, and it rocked. It had swing to it, had swagger. They did have tracks, was the reason they were using a click. This was a much smaller club than seeing Lainey Wilson at Stubbs, big production or whatever. This was, tiny little club. They just wired their whatever, I don't know what they were using for their tracks and their click, but they wired it in, and it was great. And it was very obvious what, they had tracks and all of these things, and it was fine, But there is a swagger to playing to the click, and it's worth learning how to do that. And again, the way you're going to get there is by recording your shows and just being aware. Yeah. Let's see. Where else are we? Oh, we have, sometimes we do these promo swaps where we'll go with one show versus not versus. We'll do I'm going to tell you about a show now, and they're going to tell their audience about giggab. And the show I want to talk about is this Rock Talk Studio. So we're talking about rock and roll documentaries on here that I got to see. I just mentioned 4 of them, right? What was the last good rock and roll doc you saw? Or what was the last good rock and roll book you read? Well, if you're looking for that next great rock doc or rock and roll book to check out, and you're tired of digging around, you've gone through all the things, and you have to wait for some of the stuff I saw at South by to come out, Rock Talk Studio is the podcast that you want to listen to, because it's centered around rock and roll history through books and documentaries. And each week, the host, Big Rick, he leaves you with a review, a preview, and most importantly, an informed recommendation on where to go for the good stuff. There's over 100 episodes in the archives, so you can dive back and find all your great rock and roll books and documentaries to dig into, and all the reviews and recommendations. So rock and rollers, this one's for us, the Rock Talk Studio podcast, and my thanks to Big Rick and the crew there for doing this swap with us. Yeah, fun stuff. I also, I make these notes while I'm at South by, like things to talk about here with us here on the show, right? And I said I saw 38 showcases. I didn't have all those bands on my list of bands to see. I might have had 25 or 30 of them, right? And then there's the happy accidents. Maybe less. Maybe I had 20 of those. I have a lot of bands on my schedule that I just don't get to see them all. I go through the list, and if something pops out to me, I put it on my favorites, and then see if I can make it to, their showcase or whatever. And it's that process, right? I look at their description, their picture, what genre they say they play. Maybe I will go watch a YouTube video a little bit to see if I want to put them on the list, but I don't have time to do that with 1,000 bands, right? And I think there were 1,100 bands or something that played. I don't know, but even if it was 300 bands, I'm not going to do that, right? So I don't have time. So I have to use their 1-paragraph description, their picture, and their stated genre to kind of filter down whether I want to see this band. And these are all original bands, and they do this. But as a cover band, right, you can do this too. Distilling it all down, as I was reading through everything, the ones that jumped out at me were the bands who told me who they were in a very distinctive way, right? Figure out what's distinctive about your band and tell people that. And if you don't have anything that distinguishes you from other bands, fix that, right? But talk about yourself. I know it's like not the thing is, we're supposed to be humble, and we are. Like, I don't want to turn anybody into like David Lee Roth here, but there are moments where you need to set the humility aside and use your ego as a tool. And you know what? You can use Claude to help you write this up, right? Because that's going to be the way you get some objective. I mean, you feed it what your band's about and tell it. Make me something that's going to capture people's attention quickly. 2 sentences, maybe 3, right? What is this band? Tell people what you are and make it distinctive, and they will come and see you. You want to make them feel like if they don't see you, they're missing out, right? So leverage FOMO, and I think we're all gonna do better with this. I was just going through the process. I was like, wait, why aren't we all doing this for our bands? So anyway, that was another one of those things that kind of came up while I was at South by. I don't always. I do always record the video when we do a show, even with guests, and we put the whole video out on YouTube. We put clips of it out on the various socials at times. If there's something pithy that somebody said, make them look good and put it out there. But generally, none of that is live, and I do that for a lot of reasons. But primarily, I want my guests to feel as comfortable as possible. And I tell them all that the goal is to not chop anything out of the episode, but we're not here to cancel anybody. But when I do it myself, when it's just me, like I'm doing here, I usually make that stream live. I don't announce when it's going to happen because I usually don't know when it's going to happen. But I'll put it out there, and this one's out there. It seems like there's several people watching. I haven't seen any comments or anything come through, but it would be streaming to YouTube. So if anybody's watching and has comments, you're free to do that. And if watching streams of episodes being recorded is something interesting, let me know. I certainly could do this more often, but I don't know. Like I said, I like to make sure my guests are, some people have contractual concerns that they want to make sure they don't step in the wrong spot. And there have been moments where it's like, yep, I got to cut that out, but not too many of them. A handful, maybe. I don't like to edit. I'm a lazy podcaster. So the goal is never to edit, but yeah, if you're out there. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Well, it's almost time to go to my gig here, but I do want to share a couple of little tools that I have found that are super helpful. In my gig bag, I have been putting something called an Olight. Olight, Olight is a company, but I've been putting the Arc Pro in my gig bag, but I also have other lights from Olight that I they have this thing called the OClip, and that's actually probably the best thing for your gig bag. I love the way this thing works. It's a little clip-on light. It's an LED light, and it's got multiple LEDs in it. It's got like a white LED for just to light things up. But it's tiny. I mean, this thing is like, I don't know, a quarter the size of your iPhone maybe. And I leave it clipped on stage, and I put the red light on, and it's so nice because I can have a light on stage that just stays there. It's red, doesn't mess with house lighting. I keep it very dim. I keep it in what they call moonlight mode, and I can have just my stuff lit up. I can always see if I need to reach into my gig bag to grab something. It's not pitch black up there. I can always see. I can find things. And the nice part is in moonlight mode, I think it would run for 40 hours or maybe 100 hours or something. Like, I will not charge this between gigs and not have a problem. Then I'll be like, oh, you know what? I haven't charged that Olight in a while. I should do that. So, and if I put it in the brightest mode, I'd probably burn it out in 30 minutes or something. But putting it in moonlight mode on red, man, it is perfect. And this thing's like $40. I'll put a link to the OClip Pro in the show notes here, because it's a really fantastic thing to have on stage. So put one of those in your gig bag, light it up, and I think you're going to like it. I would like to know what you have in your gig bags, folks. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com. Let me know, huh? It's always fun. I like that we get to learn together. All right. Let's see. Oh, speaking of AI, we heard from our friend Adam Moskowitz, who I like to call Adam Moskowizard. And he said, I had this concept. And I had the thought to upload the rehearsal audio MP3 to an AI engine and then ask it to act as band leader or musical director and give feedback on what needs improving versus the original studio recording. He said he had trouble getting ChatGPT to do it. I haven't tried this with Claude yet. He said, but he used Gemini for this task, and that worked great. He said, which is cool because it linked to his Google Drive files automatically, which is where the rehearsal audio lived. I think if you're going to do it with Claude, I would do it with Claude Cowork because you want to just point it at a folder of files. You don't just want to give it files. It works better that way. And so he shared like the whole breakdown, and it's probably 2 pages of breakdown, but he said, here's a breakdown of notes from a rehearsal recording of My Guy as compared to the original Mary Wells version, written from the perspective of music director. This is Gemini's feedback. It says, you have the structure down and the lead vocal is confident with the lyrics. However, the Motown feel is a very specific disciplined groove that is currently feeling a bit loose. The original track relies heavily on the interplay between the bass, the chick of the guitar, and the call and response vocals. To tighten this up, we need to focus on dynamics and rhythmic precision. And then it has section by section notes. It's like, all right, the intro, the original starts with a very distinct drum fill and a 4-bar instrumental hook. Or on the rehearsal thing, it says the band sounds like they are finding the groove in the first few measures rather than just hitting it immediately. The fix, love this, drummers and bass, lock in that opening shuffle before the song even starts. Count it off with the swing feel in your voice. The first downbeat needs to be confident, not tentative. This is a fantastic use of AI. I got to start doing this. Adam, thank you for sending that in. What a brilliant idea. Oh, man, so good. So good. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Andy says the Supertone Clear, which I think are drum heads. Do I have that right? I don't know why I thought I had all my research notes. Hey, this is pretty good. We're making it through the episode, and I've only got one little stumble here. What is the Supertone Clear? Oh, this is a plugin. I see. Right. I understand now. Much better. Not drum heads. See, this is why it's good to do this. So Andy recommends the Supertone Clear plugin to clean up vocals. And it is a one-time purchase for $35. And he says this is going to be even better than the plugins that I'm using, like NS1 is what I mentioned. And he said, Andy said Supertone Clear works even better than NS1 and is worth a shot. Okay, thank you, Andy. I will check out Supertone Clear. That is fantastic. All right. I think that's going to have to be it, folks. I need to pack up for my gig. And I'm already packed up. I mean, there's some things left, but they're on the list, as I mentioned. So, there you go. I'll give a shout out to Brian Dice, 2187, who is watching the YouTube stream. So, hey, good to see you, Brian Dice. Love to have you. And yes, Mr. Moskowizard is a wizard after all. So brilliant stuff. I'm going to have to do that. That's pretty good. Thanks to, thanks for hanging out, everybody. Really fun stuff. And let's see if I can find what I'm supposed to do next year. I think that's it. Yeah. You know what? Sign up. Check out Instagram. Of course, we're doing a ton over there. Sadie is killing it. She gives me the scripts. I record the thing. Then she makes it all look good. Check out our Instagram. And please do sign up for the mailing list. It's a great way to get the show notes and all that stuff. And you can find it at giggabpodcast.com. You can reply and it gets right straight to me. So have a good one. Always be performing. And I'll see you next week. Later.